Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Dawson County Board of Commissioners work session. Today is Thursday, September the 3rd. Glad to have you in attendance, and those that are watching live, we're glad to have you as well. We'll get right into the new business. First up, we have presentation of resolution approving the issuance of revenue bonds by the Development Authority of Dawson County for the Peaks of Dawsonville Development. Chairman Tony Passarella. Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kristen says I'm smart enough to figure this out. There you go. I come before you today with the objective of reviewing the procedural status of the revenue bond procedure that's going on for the Peaks of Dawson, to submit the document for resolution for signature by the chairman, and to answer any questions you guys might have. Sorry about that. Just as a review from our discussions earlier, I wanted just to go through the process here, explaining what a revenue bond characteristic is. It has a state and federally approved financial vehicle. It has published procedures, a lot of published procedures and mandates to protect all parties as part of the transaction. It's normally handled by the Development or Housing Authority for a county. The authority acts as a financial conduit. There's no commitment or financial liability by Dawson County or by the Dawson County Development Authority. I'd like to stress that.
Say that one more time.
There's no commitment nor financial liability by Dawson County or the Development Authority of Dawson County. It's used to promote development of some of our strategic initiatives in the county. An example for this Peaks of Dawson, of course, it's the living wage housing mandates that are part of this overall to present more affordable rental housing in the county. And it requires a jointly developed bond agreement. So the bond agreement is retained. There's an outside attorney that drafts the documents and it's negotiated, and it'll be brought before you guys for action. I just wanted to update you on the operation of the clicker.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. The intent here is to show you where we are in the process. We've gone through the application by the company, Dawson Holdings, for seeking the revenue bond financing. There was a meeting and an adoption of an inducement resolution by the Development Authority saying that this meets the strategic mandates of the county, as well as the intent to move forward if the proper procedures are followed and the content of the revenue bond itself meets with the approval of our elected officials. Next, they have assembled a financing team. That's the responsibility of the developer and the bond attorney. I am pleased to say that this has been done, and it's rather than multiple agencies, it's one agent that will be supplying the not to exceed $10 million bond for this particular development. According to federal law, because this is part of a tax-exempt financing vehicle, that there has to be a public hearing, which was held in the county. And coming out of that, that's kind of where we are, is we need to produce a resolution which has been provided to Chairman Thurman for signature, and that should be in your packet. So that,
The tax exempt that you're talking about, that's federal tax, that's not property.
that's correct. That's
Just for
it's not
clarification.
it's not tax exempt from a standpoint of it's any type of abrogation or
It's just federal tax.
offsets. It's a more desirable treatment of their particular financing vehicle, so they get, in essence, a lower interest rate.
Just want to clarify that for the citizens.
Yeah, no, it's not the city or the county or the development authority. It's all a federal thing. Next, the state steps in, and these steps will be taken. The state has a bond cap for this type of financing every year. And so the developer will have to apply to that, make sure they're in the under the cap for the state. Then we'll start drafting the bond documents and adopt the bond resolution. We'll validate the proceedings. Once the county commissioners have had a chance to act on this, it will be sent to the Superior Court judge for our area, so that he or she can review this, make sure it met all the federal and state mandates and procedural code. And then that will lead to closing. Our intent is to have this process completed by January of next year. And right now I'd have to characterize it as we're on track for that. I'd like to entertain any questions that you might have.
Questions for Tony?
Honey, I'd like to know if this is going, if it can legally be done, anything geared to providing housing just for Dawson County citizens. Because I would hate to, everybody from wherever come in and take advantage of this project.
That would certainly be preferable, Julie, but there is no provision for that in the way this would be handled. It becomes a commercial at that point. The developers are actually the people that will be running it, and they have made a commitment for 10 years going out as far as controlling the rents and things like that, but there's no provision in it for what county of
For
residents.
Dawson County citizens to have priority.
No, not to my knowledge.
Well, it just seems like, you know, I don't know
Yeah.
how to get that to happen. And I don't know
I
if
think-
it could legally be done.
I think what you're gonna have too is that with the work requirements associated with this, they're gonna become Dawson County citizens if they're not. If they're living there, they gotta work in the area. So I think with that work requirement, you know, they're not just gonna be in a apartment. There's a work requirement associated with it.
And then if you start with something like that, it's gonna be discrimination.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was.
You know, and you got federal involved and
Federal
state.
Housing Authority, you don't wanna go down that road.
No, mm-mm.
Tony, do we know what the timeline is of them actual starting construction? Is it contingent on this process, or are they able to move forward irregardless of this process?
It's the former. Their ability to,
have
they
that.
own the land, so they
Right.
have a stake in the game. They've gone through the zoning processes
Right.
that y'all have approved. They have spent a lot of money. They're paying all of our legal expenses and all of the application fees. They've gone through the planning office and paid all of the fees and application fees for that. So they definitely have skin in the game at this point. But without this type of funding, I can't really comment on whether they'll go forward or not. My gut tells me that it would be more difficult for them to go forward based on the revenue that each unit will be producing. And it's going to be 60% of what the market would bear.
Mhm.
So I don't know that the business model works.
And then I guess maybe I should have reworded that. When are they going to break ground? I thought I heard that they are already breaking ground. No,
I don't.
do you know, Jamison?
I don't believe they are going to break ground until this
Till this-
process is done.
Okay, that was my ultimate question.
Because The way the revenue bond would be set up would be, it would be a drawdown bond.
Right,
So the amount would be held in a third-party bond issuer.
right.
And then as expenses for the project are
Yeah.
submitted, it would be paid against that. And
Right.
so I would tend to believe that they are going to wait for any further major expenses like getting started or grading or those types of things until they have access to this more affordable money.
Yes.
And I know part of our stipulations on that particular one was major improvements on the road that is, what's the name of that road, Jameson? Power Center Drive, one goes up to the movie theater, so that's
No, that's not Power Center.
400 Center, yeah.
Yeah.
North 400 Center. So that was part of it, cutting the road in behind CVS and then interacting with GDOT on seeing if there's the threshold of the light at Ingalls and 53.
Actively in that process right now.
Okay. Thank you.
If there are no further questions, I'd just like to reinforce the fact that there is no financial commitment by Dawson County or the Dawson Development Authority to carry forward with this type of bonds. And I hope you all wish us luck.
Yes.
Tony, just for clarification as well, this is not like a program.
That's
I
right.
understand this is not the same kind of thing. That was a tax abatement that would affect the county locally. This has no effect at all
Yeah.
on the county.
Yeah, they'll be paying all of their hookup fees. They'll be paying all of their taxes. Tax assessments that would be issued for the improvements, all of that would be normal as far as revenue to the county.
Thank you.
So when would that need to be signed? If the board approves it? Would you looking for that, were you looking for that to be moved to the voting session, or can it wait for 2 weeks?
Well, actually, the process is such that the commissioners don't have to vote on it, that it can be signed by the chairman of the authority. And I applaud you for asking us to be, our continued effort to be transparent, that we brought it forth for, but there is not a necessity for the board to vote for the resolution.
Okay.
There is when we get the bond agreement together, but
Okay.
at this point, we would appreciate the resolution to be acted on as soon as possible.
So that does require my signature. The resolution will require my signature?
Yes.
Okay.
Here,
If you all want to move that? Sure. Okay.
Kristen has the document.
She does, yeah.
We've got it in our packet.
And then there's also a document about the report.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have presentation of request for Mercy Temporary Elections Employee and additional 2020 budget funds. Chief Registrar Linda Ferguson. Linda.
I wanted to say thanks to Kristen for letting me just jump in at the last minute and to the board for hearing us at the last minute. It just seems like there's daily changes and things coming in. Even before I came over was kind of another expense we talked about on actually a Zoom meeting with our region. So it's been kind of, everything's just evolving so fast. But we are asking, that just seems like we're getting more walk-in traffic, more phone calls, more everything, that it's just taking so much away that we can't seem to get the other duties done that we need to get done, as well as the just the ongoing programs that are being presented, and the state's trying to implement things that will help. But in the process, we're training and we're trying to see if they work, and it tends to be a little bit more work than on our end, more so. It streamlines for the voter, which is what we're, I guess, the ultimate goal, but on our end, it tends to add a little more and a little more. So, so our board asked me if I would just come before this board and say that we'll do our best effort to do less than the full-time person if we can for the 6 month, you know, the 40 hours. If we can do it at 32 or whatever, I'll try to be real, I'll try to monitor it as best I can and be mindful of the hours and make sure that we don't overextend if not needed. So just, if we just ask for the maximum, so just in case, because we don't know what we're looking at. But like I say, things keep changing and more things added to, and I can give you a little bit of history if you need it, but I've got it there in front of you if there's anything you want to ask me. I did take a couple of the line items off for the budgetary items and trying to work that in with what we already have with our grant funding that we were able to get, thank goodness, is in our budget. So I'm trying to allocate some of that, like the printing and binding for the ballots and the advertising, which you can see is low. And we still have November, December, January, of course, to go in next year's budget, but we still have those 2 elections that will have to be advertised, and the new things that are coming on board, such as the online voter registration and those things of that nature. And there's another program that they're trying to bring out for internally into the Board of Elections to all across the state to be able to monitor the polls via software and be able to, for managers to go in and be able to notify us if they can't get us by phone, if there's something needed or if there's anything that needed to be that's troubleshooting going on or anything like that. So having said that, I tried to maintain that as best I could. So this is kind of a guesstimate. I have no way of really knowing. And I'm sure you're aware of that. I think it's challenged everybody, all our departments across the county with things. So, and I know there's others. I know there's other departments that probably has great need, if not greater than us, but we just wanted to make you aware of what's going on so you know, and if there's a possibility to add that person, a poll worker, they just come and go. We don't have anybody that's just consistent, you know, with 4 days a week that I know of right now, because we haven't presented it obviously without approval, so. And I'm up for any kind of suggestions. I mean, we went around this mountain trying to figure out what the best way would be to, you know, to do. If you bring on 3 or 4 poll workers, you got to retrain every time. And we're trying to print out lists. It may come to that. It may just be something we have to just deal with, but we would like to be able to have that option if possible.
I think this election is going to be more scrutinized probably than any in our past. So I think it is our responsibility to ensure that you have the resources available to ensure that you're able to efficiently and accurately manage a big, I think that we'll see a big turnout as well, big election. So I'm willing to work in however we can in order to get you those resources. And you're not one that comes before us on a regular basis unless you have a real honest need. And I appreciate that. And so I'm open to looking and seeing what we can do.
I will at the last minute. This was a last minute addition. I just came from a Zoom webinar with my region. And because our emails were down, I didn't get this email. But the vendor will be sending out ballots. This is just so you know, this is like an additional for postage and for printing. I haven't been able to do any kind of figures on it to try to give you some more accuracy, but up till September the 8th, the vendor will mail out all of our, what we call our rollover voters, elderly, disabled. They will do that at the cost of the state. But after September 8th, up until about 2 weeks before the election, we have to mail them 2 weeks before the election. The county is responsible for that. Well, in between that window, the vendor has offered to mail those ballots at $1.40 a ballot, which would be the printed ballot, the postage and all. We have no way of knowing. If we had 4,100 ballots, you're looking at about $5,700, give or take. And that's what we had in the runoff. Well, we know we're going to exceed that. That's not a question about that. So just to give you an idea of that's a last minute cost that I have not even had a chance, and I'll be glad to, as soon as I can get it figured and presented. We're not sure that we're going to do that, and there's reasons in-house with being able to follow paper ballots and people wanting to know when they've been out, sent out, et cetera, that we had challenges with before. So I'm not even saying that's an option yet. I haven't even presented it to my board. So, but just to give you an idea, that was a last minute addition. So I wanted to pass that on to you also, so you would know.
Will you be able to find anybody that already knows a lot and you won't have to train? You know, if you have to train, if you have to tell somebody everything to do, that's really not
Defeats the
much of a
purpose.
help.
You're right. It would, we're hoping that it will be an existing poll worker that we can move up instead of the 28-hour that we're limited to.
Yeah.
That we can take, I haven't asked anyone what, there's some people that are available, I know that are not working, but whether they're going to want to commit, that much time or not, those that are familiar and it can be able, and like I say, it may be something that just is not doable. But as long as we have that option, that would be helpful if I did find someone. But you're right, it would, the best effort. And a lot of the counties, I just heard, a lot of the counties are hiring like 10 to 12, like Call County, 10 to 12 temps with a fact sheet in front of them and stuff to answer the phones over there because it's just so overwhelming. And
So what would this person, have you got a job description for them? Or is this kind of a gopher and, just do whatever?
No, really what we hope this person will do, because we spend a lot of time doing this. When you get your paper ballot and people want to come back and vote in person instead of use the paper ballot,
Yes.
we have to cancel that ballot. There's a form you fill out. And then to be eligible to vote in person, that took a lot of, we ended up having to have one person at every precinct do that on election day. But during advanced voting, we had one person doing that too because there were so many. So what we're hoping that this person will do is not only answer the phones, give general information. When I say general information, they got to know the difference of when a ballot is received, when it's mailed out, if that you don't register by party in the state of Georgia. That's a big thing for people. And to be able to, right now, because there's so much speculation and so much uncertainty that people are calling that have been voting for years because they're getting these mailings that say you need to register to vote.
I know.
So we're getting a lot of that. They're confirming.
Yeah, I did too. Why?
Yeah,
Why are they
texts, all this kind of stuff is going
set
out.
out for?
And it's really getting people very confused.
Yeah.
And they're calling or they're coming by. I'm having people come by and say, I need some answers. And they sit down in the chair and they say, okay, explain this whole process to me. So it's a lot of, and obviously you do it. You want to clear up any kind of misconception. But we're hoping that this person, and if we can get one of our seasoned poll workers that's been here a while, they know some of those answers because they answer it during election, during advanced voting. So if we can get that person to be there, we'd have to probably put another person in their place as far as working the polls, but do that and be able to go into our system and be able to look up the voter and let them know whether or not they have received a ballot. It's very critical that you make sure you follow that so that's how we prevent people from voting twice and doing. They've got to be able to know what to read on that screen, how to input that information when they bring that ballot back, because you have to go in and cancel it. And this is process.
I
That's
had
what we'd like to
seen
see.
where people did get an absentee ballot and they filled that out and sent it in and then went to the polls and voted again and got through there and got to vote twice.
Yeah, it was like.
So how, say somebody already had an absentee ballot and they came in and they did not bring it back. When they go in there to vote, have you got some kind of system that says, hey, this
Yes.
person has already voted by absentee?
Absolutely. On those poll pads, it is, when we have to, the Saturday before elections, we have to go in and download all of that information from early voting into those poll pads that tells who voted.
Okay.
Same with absentee voting. And the critical thing about this election, and I can see how it could happen, we had so many applications versus ballots coming in, overwhelmingly all across the state. And to staff to do it with social distancing was very difficult. I know it was on our staff, so I can only imagine Hall and other places. So what happens in that, if you don't get those in to the system where it verifies, if somebody is not put in a system, which they should be, it should never be an issue, then that's the only way, because the poll pad's going to flag the poll worker that there's an absentee ballot out.
Okay.
They need to call our office. And that's why we ahead of time put somebody in place, one person on election day, for them to call us and say, well, we don't see where this person ever returned their ballot, or did they return their ballot? Because it says it's out. And then, of course, we had someone who could look it up. She looked it up and said, yeah, the ballot's out. Now, or the ballot's not out. They, we've got the ballot, or the ballot's not been voted. Hasn't been received. I'll put it that way. Hasn't been received. Or it has been received. So they let them know it's been received. You can't vote twice. So, but if someone failed to enter those ballots, if you have a whole lot of ballots and don't put those in as received, then you could have a potential have a problem.
Yes.
So, but again, it's just overwhelming. There's a process. So I don't know. I can't even begin to know. I've tried to wrap my head around that, how that happened, especially in a smaller county, but it's not equipment. I'll just put it that way. Unless somebody downloaded the wrong information, there's just no way. So it had to be something on the internal end that I can think of, and I shouldn't probably say that, but but hopefully we haven't been one of those. I hope we never are. So, but it can, but it's easy to, when you got all that volume, I had to rethink some of the things I've said, because when you have that kind of volume, it's difficult.
Oh, or did you bring up about the CARES Act thing, or were you going to?
Yeah,
You
and
talked to
that's-
Billy about it?
Yeah, and apparently this does not, it's not approved by that fund. However, one of my follow-up questions is how much of this extra work is being driven directly from the COVID process? Is there a way to correlate with how much extra man hours that we're having to staff because of COVID situations?
I would almost say 100% of this, because we did it before. It was hard in
Right.
2016 when we handled an election, but we did it with the staff we have. And maybe even, was Brittany even full-time at that time? I can't remember. So, but because of the mass of these and the confusion of, and all this for the ballots, all that's driven from COVID
Right.
when they sent out the mass applications.
Yeah, so right now, apparently, it's, the research that's been done says is not applicable to those funds. However, I'm going to
That's a
pick up the phone.
mistake.
I'm going to make some phone calls at the federal and state level, not that I can get anything done, but I'm going to question that, because I think there is valid increases due to that, and I don't see why it wouldn't be an approved expense. So that's something that I
That's why
want
there
to.
are a lot more absentee
Yeah, that's exactly.
ballots.
Sure.
I voted for the first
most
time.
we've ever had was over 800, and you're talking 4,100. When they sent out absentee ballots to everybody in the county,
Yes.
then, and it generated voting, which is what it was meant to do. But yeah, that's what it was for. Because generally you have to request by law. So,
How many vendors, you was talking about vendors, how many vendors send out absentee?
it's just the one, it's just that
Just in
one.
Georgia? Because I know there was something on the news, I think last night, about people getting absentee ballots from different vendors.
Now we're talking about, when we're talking about vendors, the mailing those ballots, it's just
Ballot.
one that I know of.
Okay.
Now, printing ballots, if they print the ballots for every county, they choose who they want to be their vendor.
Because somebody was showing one that the absentee ballot come in and actually had an attachment to it that was a campaign ad attached to the ballot. It was part of the document.
And that was in Georgia?
No, I don't even
Oh,
in Georgia.
okay.
I was wondering how
don't
many
know
vendors
about
we
that.
had in Georgia.
Yeah. That's not good.
So we obviously have a quick timeline on this situation, because you got to get something going pretty quick. What is your anticipated need of getting back with your board, a decision that this board makes in order to move the ball forward?
We're meeting, the 15th or 17th, whatever that Wednesday is when we're meeting.
I mean, to me, she's got to have this.
I agree.
The scrutiny of these elections is just unreal now. And, if you're all frustrated and all that, you really can't do your job right.
So
So, I
it's going to
mean,
be that anyway, trust me, because it's just the mass amount at the time that you have.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
know, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
But that's what elections are, and I've bought into that one. Maybe not this way, but not this one, but yeah.
So your total that you're asking for is $40,803. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Correct.
So that would have to, Vicky, that would have to come out of fund balance because we're not budgeted towards that. Is that correct? Yeah, you can come up here. I need to with the recording stuff nowadays.
My recommendation would be that it would come out of the contingency line item. There's about $88,000 in that line item right
Okay.
now. So that would be my recommendation. Thank you.
that would be good.
Chairman, can we move that to tonight?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
if that's what you want to do.
Thank you.
I mean, I think the sooner the better.
And she wants to try to get started on the 8th, if I read that correctly.
I want to try, yeah, as quick as I can. That'd be great.
Yeah,
To find somebody who hasn't even done that
Yeah.
yet. So, yeah.
let's go, let's roll with it.
It's a good thing to have the money before you ask for it. That's good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll go with that, and then I want to stay on, seeing if we can figure out a way, the CARES Act stuff, to see if there's any flexibility in that stuff. And I know our staff.
Your question about the CARES Act, I think, the fact that we had already spent all the money that we had been allocated in round one, in round two, that may fall in.
Right.
So it may be an opportunity to get some kind of reimbursement in round two, if they do it round two. Yep. Try that at that time.
Great.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh, let me ask you one other thing. Do you need that card back that they mailed me and Sherry?
Mine's in the trash. I did this for putting the shred. But it made me wonder. I thought, what in the world? I've been registered to vote since I was 18. You know, I mean, it's unnerving to get stuff like
It
that.
says they're gonna take you out of the road,
Yeah,
make you inactive.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have mine.
I'll bring it to you.
It's in a
It
dump
came from
somewhere.
Secretary of State, though. That's what it said. Yeah. All right. Next up, we have presentation of application for create and assembly bootlegger triathlon planning and development director Jameson Kinley. Jamie.
Thank you, Chairman. The bootlegger triathlon has been going on in Dawson County at Veterans Park since 2011. They're expecting approximately 150 athletes. The triathlon begins at Veterans Park. It goes up to Mill Creek, and then they turn around and they return to Veterans Park. The event is projected to be held on September 13th and will last from 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. We are still currently waiting the final approval from GDOT. It should be in my email somewhere when that gets back up and going. And this will be needed to be moved to the voting session as well this evening for vote.
Questions?
I thought we gave you the approval from an administration standpoint. It's been done in the past that you could, if nothing's changed, that you could reapprove it. Is there something different about this one?
We made that.
We did do that. I was gonna ask the same question.
Absolutely. And this is a parade and assembly permit. We did that for the special event permits. We have
Okay.
not touched our
Okay.
parade and assembly ordinance.
All right, thank you.
Maybe that's something we should.
Because at one time he was
Yes.
bringing,
We're working on it.
at one time he was bringing multiple events a year.
Yes.
Mr. Starr was, yeah.
Maybe we need to look at that piece of it as well. Right. If it's an every year thing.
And no changes.
Thank you. Next up, we have presentation of Edna Noblin Road abandonment request, Public Works Director David McKee. David.
So we don't bring our phone in here with us, right? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Several years now, let me get the right folder. Several years now, the topic of Edna Noblin Road has come up in discussion from various property owners. As of recent, we had a property owner actually approach Commissioner Satterfield about can the county abandon the road? A little bit about the abandonment process. The power is held by the board. This board has to make the decision whether they want to start the process and continue down the abandonment process. If that is the case, what my office will do is we'll notify all the property owners. In this particular case, there's 4. I think there is a map in your packet. There's 4 different main property owners, Chestatee being a 5th property owner. They have access obviously through Nightfire Drive. But Edna Noblin Road, located off of State Route 400 North, it's a right-in, right-out access. Before Chestatee Development was there, I'm sure many of you know, Edna Noblin Road used to go straight through. It now dead ends. Trash, animals, I'm sure there's people smoking everything that they could imagine down there.
Dead animals.
Dead or alive. In my tenure here, we've been down there a number of different times. We do run a mower down it. We don't do any other maintenance, but because it doesn't go anywhere. So back to the process, then the statute requires that we have a public hearing on the abandonment of the road. And if we abandon it, since it is multiple accesses, or since it does provide access for multiple property owners, the right-of-way stays as it is. It just becomes private right-of-way, and they could gate it. They could do whatever they wanted to do at that point outside of DOT right-of-way. This doesn't affect anything with their access or at the state right-of-way. So my question, or my purpose tonight is just bringing this before the board to get approval to move forward with the abandonment process. It does not serve any county facilities. It is completely undeveloped property and vacant wooded property. And there's a map there that we've provided. And I'll attempt to answer any questions based on that.
Questions, Dave?
Have you talked to all the property owners, or was it just one? That's,
I don't
do you think they're
know.
all on board with it?
I do. Yes,
Do
I
you?
do. We have not spoken to, we've spoken to one of the young family property owners. I don't know who you spoke to, Commissioner Satterfield. But that's it. That's all we've personally spoken to in the office. Before we schedule a hearing, we will reach out to them and discuss it with them before we just send them a note and say, you know, here's what we're going to do. So we will do a little bit of legwork since we're abandoning. I know that's somewhat of a new process for us at the county.
I mean, there's constantly dumping there. I know when we were going over their tire ordinance, they were dumping a lot of tires back there too, but they've already put up a fence down a lot of the property. And he wants to come off, or some of the owners want to come off 400 and give enough room for, I think State Patrol sits there a lot and a lot of our deputies sit there for traffic stops. He's gonna leave them enough room, but he wants to put a gate up tied to that fence. They've already installed the fence, but it's just, I mean, it's an everyday thing. Somebody's not trying to dump back there, debris, limbs, whatever. It's
Are there houses on either side of the
no,
road?
no, ma'am.
No,
No house, no.
nothing. Just vacant property.
Mhm. My favorite kind. Huh? Yeah, we do, don't we?
Other questions for David?
Just abandonment, is that just in essence, just closing it?
No, it's not closing it.
No?
Basically, our rights to the road. We're giving up our rights to the road, our maintenance responsibility to the road. Every
So
year
whose responsibility is the road
today,
then? No, if we abandon,
it would become the property owners. It would just become a private right of way, just like any other private road, which is the reason for notifying the property owners. If in the past, when we've done this, if one or two folks say, no, I don't want to maintain the road, I don't want to do any of that. But in this particular case, they've tried everything possible to keep people from trashing their property, looting, and doing whatever they do there. And this is really just a last ditch effort originally it came to us, can we put a gate up? And I said, no, it's public right of way. You can't put a gate up. Well, then we want to abandon it. And that's how we kind of got today. They want to gate the road to keep the general public from going back there, because there's no reason to be back there. Absolutely no reason to be back there.
do the owners live in Chestatee?
Not a clue.
They don't.
Well, most of them live right around they back up to the property.
They do.
How large a property is it? How many acres? Anybody have any clue?
They're large tracts. I don't know that. I can get that information, but they're pretty large tracts.
It's got the parcel numbers here.
10, 12. I'm gonna say total land area right around there, roughly 30. I'm gonna take a stab and say 30, roughly 30 acres.
The biggest piece is towards Chesapeake. Isn't it?
The biggest parcel is on the south side of the road. As you're traveling down the road on the south side,
Right,
the
right,
north
right,
side of the
right.
road is owned by the same family, but it's two different names, two different parcels. So it's really only two families that own the property, but it is indeed 4 parcels.
See, Roberts.
The 118-007 is 18.61 acres. 118-115 is 5.9 acres. 118-007-002, 6.12 acres. The 118-008 is 77.54 acres.
That 18008 though is the
77
total.
acres?
That's the total
that's the
of Chestatee.
That
Yeah.
includes Chestatee.
Oh,
And it stops, they stopped that when they built the clubhouse, tennis courts, all that stuff.
Yeah, that includes that little, well, I can't see it now, but that includes a lot of other property inside Chestatee too, so.
All the
so how
golf
many
course,
acres was that? I didn't.
Roughly
know.
30.
Roughly
Yeah,
30.
yeah, if you add it all up, that's what it is. Not enough for a park.
Mm-mm.
Other questions for David?
So the next step is a public hearing.
No, ma'am. The next step is
No?
for the board to take action, and it can be 2
We
weeks,
vote to have a public hearing.
Oh, okay.
to vote to move forward with the abandonment process. And then I'll notify the property owners, have some conversation with them. We'll schedule a public hearing. We'll have the public hearing. And then at that time, the board can make a decision on, at that hearing, following the end of the hearing, on the decision on the
Okay.
abandonment.
Other questions
It's
for
fine with me.
Thanks, David. You have the next one, so I'll just read it from here. Presentation of Dawson County Recycling Program update. David, you keep that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is the third time in 3 years I've been before you to discuss recycling. I want to encourage everybody, there's a whole lot of smoke and mirrors out there about the recycling industry. And what I mean by that is where something appears to be actually happening and in reality it's not. And this discussion is not necessarily a popular discussion unless you're talking about great things that you can do with it. And there are some really good outcomes of the recycling industry. You'll recall back in 2018, in the last time, 6 months ago when I was before you, we talked about a paradigm shift. That shift is continuing to go in the wrong direction. And again, with that said, what we as a county continue to see is what direction do we want to go through with this program? Because the industry as a whole is struggling to find out what to do with these materials once they get processed, or actually before they even get processed. So we'll talk a little bit, we'll go into a little bit of detail about that. And I've done a ton of reading about recycling in the past 3 or 4 weeks, trying to get my hands around really what we're doing. And I never really thought that what we're talking about in our little blip on the radar would ever be affected by the global markets, but it absolutely is. And that's really what's driving this. And we'll get into it, but the biggest issue is the budgetary aspects that we have, the logistics of operating the program, and then the expenses. I think you'll see as we go through this process for budget for 2021, the solid waste transfer station budget for the first time ever is going to have to be supplemented by the solid waste fund. And that's, I see your face, that's scary to me too, because we're going in the wrong direction.
That's
Our
never-
expenses are continuing to rise. and our revenues are staying flat, or in some aspects is because of programs like this. So we're going to go through this, and at the end of this, I have a recommendation, and I'll talk about kind of some of the thought process I went through with that. So this is a slide everybody should be familiar with. Prior to 2013, we had those big blue bins. If you've been up to Lumpkin County, that's the exact same bins that were here. That was a program that was ran through Lumpkin County. They had their bins here at our transfer station. The customers got out, you dropped your glass in here, you crammed your paper in this side. 2013, we entered into it. We purchased a compactor, same compactor we have now. We purchased that and entered into agreement with Advanced Disposal for single stream recycling. At the time, it was a booming market. They would take a lot of material. They would accept a lot of contaminated material because it was a booming market. They shipped every bit of it to China. So it was a booming market. The only fee that Dawson County saw was a $12 per ton contamination fee. And I have been unable to locate any contamination charges prior to 2018, and we'll get into that. So 2013 to 2018, this process was rocking along fairly good. And all of this material was picked up twice a week from our solid waste facility at the transfer station, and then it was taken down to Alpharetta to the materials recycling facility. Picked up twice a week. Talked about that. 2014, the school system and Keep Dawson Beautiful in Dawson County put some satellite locations out. That's these trailers. There's been a whole bunch of discussion on social media, everything else about these satellite locations. That was certainly more convenient for some folks. And so those were introduced in 2014 and 2018. I don't think the Board of Education had anything to do with the paradigm shift in the industry, but in 18, they, for a number of reasons, said we want those removed out of our facilities, off of the property of the schools. Primarily what it had to do with is they didn't want anybody that wasn't dropping a child off, picking a child up to go to the schools. The second thing was the items that were left in, around, on them. So it was sort of two or threefold. So we removed those from the campuses at the Board of Education's request. 2018, there was a major industry shift. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that. Here's a little bit of new information from some of my reading, and I know it's really exciting stuff, but short of it is, in 16, this is just a blip. The U.S. exported 160 million tons of plastic, paper, and metals to China. The problem today is still the plastics. That's the problems. There is market for clean cardboard and papers, and there is markets for metal, but there is zero market in the U.S. for plastics, and we'll go through that. Talks about what it's called in the industry is China's national sword policy. Basically, what China decided is we have all this stuff that's smoking on the countryside and burning up everything. We have all the trash in our own country. We're going to concentrate on our own country. We're going to do our own recycling, and we're going to try to sell it back. We're not going to take any of these exported recyclables from any countries. That had absolutely nothing to do with just the U.S. So as a result of that, many municipalities and counties and states are having to go through exactly what we're going through here today. There are several of our colleagues to the south, some of the municipalities, the cities have completely done away with their single stream. They've gone strictly to paper and cardboard because there is a market. We could make, that is a revenue stream for paper and cardboard. They've done away with the single stream completely. Statesboro's one in my reading came to mind. They completely did away with their recycling program. Just completely did away with it from a budget standpoint. It was just too costly to provide that service. And if you're going to charge somebody for the recycling, that break-even point, it's cheaper to throw it away. So it then becomes a budget decision for families and everything else. So I'm not going to read all that word for word, but what happened in 2018 is basically three big items. recycling companies became very picky. They became extremely picky on what they would allow us to put in this single stream thing. They began charging customers. 2018 was the first time we were charged, and we were charged a lot. It basically, I'll sum it up, roughly $20,000 a year is what it cost us to do this. They saw massive profit losses. When we went down to the advanced MRF, they told us, and I'm not going to quote an amount, but their goal, I believe, was, I'm just going to put a number out there, $30,000 a month loss. They were trying to get to $30,000 a month loss just in that facility. So that's why that's really the industry as a whole. We're not going to spend any time there. There's 3 reads to look at. Some of the takeaways here is that none of these processing recycling plants were in the U.S. They were all over. About $100 million purchase. It's got a 20-year depreciation. So your investment is huge to put one of these in here. Never mind the permitting and everything you have to go through. So in my head, I'm thinking, well, maybe we need to build a recycling facility, but that's an unbelievable investment that companies would have to do, which is why we don't see them here, and they were in other countries. So now we're going to come back down to the micro scale a little bit and talk about our program and what we've done and what we're, kind of get to where we're a recommendation. Currently, we operate a single stream. It's commingled recycled. That is a manned compactor station. Why is it important that it is manned? Because we can control what goes in it, which then we can control the cost. The unmanned sites, we can't control what goes in them. And in turn, when we do sort that out, and we'll talk about in a second, that becomes very time consuming, cumbersome, and can be a little bit dangerous. So we have that compactor man site. We did put out 3 recycle trailers, Fire Station 2, 4, and River Park. Those were unmanned. Fire Station 2 was our biggest hitter. We were having to do it 2 or 3 times a week, changing it out. It was also the biggest abuser, being contaminated. Somebody would see the trailer down there, it's unmanned, and they would go put recycling in it, but they would also put their household garbage on the ground beside it or shove it in there. And when I talk about the recycling industry as picky, if they see a trash bag in there, they're not going to rip it open and see if it's cardboard and plastic and everything else. They're just going to shove it over to the trash side. And if they see 2 or 3 bags of whatever's in the bags, they're going to dump the whole load. And I know that firsthand because we went down and watched one of Dawson County's loads get dumped into the recycling facility. And I got some pictures of that. So the recycle trailers, Station 4 and River Park, they're kind of as needed, but Station 2, we talked about that. What's involved in that? Now, I think it's important for this board to understand exactly what is involved in that. That's exchanged by transfer station and or public works employees. If we're busy, if it's a Monday or Friday, I cannot take somebody from the transfer station away for a number of different purposes. So what do? We pull somebody off the road department. I've done it myself. I go down there, grab somebody because 2 people have to go. You have to tarp it. You bring this trailer back. Take an empty one down there, bring the trailer back. Then I've just for numbers purposes, I've put 2 staff members 3 hours. Those trailers are, I think they're 12 or 14 feet long, 6 feet wide, 5 feet tall. So 5 feet on me is here. You have to walk in this trailer piece by piece, scoop it up, decide if you're going to put this in the recycle bin or not. If it is, you dump it in the recycle bin. You walk back, walk in the 5-foot trailer, squat down, scoop it up again. That's about an hour and a half or 2 hour process just to transfer that out. If there's contamination in there, I put in here that more sorting is needed. I have tasked my folks with ripping open every bag. We recycle it to McKee household. It all goes in a what looks like a trash can in my pantry. It goes in a big black bag. It goes to the dump. They have to rip it open and dump it in there. So there's a whole lot of hand sorting that goes on at our facility, at our manned facility. I talked about I'm not behind, good. I talked about our site down, our visit down to the materials recycling facility. What you see in that center picture, that's actually Dawson County's recycling. all of these, we walked through, we watched it go through the line. They can actually do up to 20 people, 15 people. So if we want to have a field trip, it's a really cool facility. And they turn a lot of recyclables out of there. They also, only about 60% or 40% of what goes through there makes the cut. 60% of it is contaminated. Glass, no glass makes the cut. Okay. There's some more pictures of our field trip. I think I saw Kara. She was with us. Yeah, she is here. She got to go with us. So this is kind of what, I wanted the board to see what we see as, or what Advanced Disposal sees as contaminated. A pizza box. Y'all, we've talked about that last time here. If it's got a smudge of grease on it, they're picky, they're going, it's in the trash. If it's a bag like you see here, it's going in the trash. And we talked about that. Your milk cartons and all that stuff, your shampoo, all that stuff, before it can be considered recyclable, it's got to be completely thoroughly washed. And if it's not, then it goes in the trash.
How do they know if it's completely and thoroughly washed?
They don't. They make some assumptions now, today. And prior to 18, so in 16, 17, they would have taken it and processed it. And that would have gotten trashed in China or wherever, wherever it would have been. So now they don't. What they do is if they see one or two items that's contaminated, whole load goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
The fact that you said that they're basically not taking anything plastic, they're eliminating all that anyway.
Did you say glass? They don't take glass either?
Southeastern United States, no glass is recycled, and it boils down to the transportation cost to get it to a facility, far exceeds the cost of manufacturing new glass. So they smash it, it goes through a smasher at the facility, and it goes into a 30-yard dumpster. Dumpster goes to a landfill.
So that's not considered contaminated then?
No.
Okay.
No, glass falls out. There's a specific process in that assembly line where glass falls out, goes through a shredder, and I say a shredder, breaks it all up and goes into a dumpster, and it's just real fine glass. If it's contaminated, why is the contamination important? If it's contaminated, it's $45 per ton is what our cost is. That's more than we pay for trash by about $25 a ton if we take it to Eagle Point. So again, I'm just merely telling y'all what our costs are and the process we go forward. This is really just some related costs to the program. Our current contract with Advanced Environmental for non-contaminated is $25 a ton, $45 if it's contaminated, and a $100 trip charge. We went through several months back in January, February, and March of 19, where they were telling us that every single can was contaminated, which is what triggered our visit down to the MRF, is what they call it, Materials Recycle Facility, because I wanted them to show me what is contaminated so that I can try to take that step out at our end. It has caused us some grief internally, because when a customer sees us throw some stuff out, they immediately say we're throwing all the recycling out.
Oh, I know.
And back to the smoke and mirrors. If they think they're recycling it, and in reality, some of it is, and a lot of it is. So $100 trip charge every time they come to our facility. It's a $100 trip charge. And then obviously staff involved in recycling and processing the trailers. We talked about that. That's 2 staff members. This next slide is a whole lot of information on here. Really what I was trying to do here is several things. So your green squares, or they appear green to me, there's 2 rectangles, one at the beginning of the chart, one at the end. Those were areas where there was no trailers in use. Why is that important? So you can see the tonnage lines. The tonnage didn't change that much. What did change is the service, the ease of service, I guess is what I'll say. So that's the purpose there. The red line in the middle, or the red, what appears to be red to me, the red rectangle, that was where we were seeing 100% contaminated boxes. And really what it boiled down to is bags. Anything that was in a bag, they assumed it was a trash bag. Go through the process, and I can understand why they would do that, because it slows the process down, time's money to them. They're losing $30,000 a month anyway. So The other items that are on here, the green bar, or excuse me, the orange bars that shoot up, that's our tons of recycling. The yellow bar is the loads, and then the red line is our cost. It's not real hard to see that cost line far exceeds, it's way too far from our tonnage line. So we have to find some way to either reduce the cost or change something the way we do, or fund it adequately. That's our options that we're left with there. So I'm going to briefly, just real quickly, talk about one of my or how we kind of thought about some of these recommendations, and some we talked about. Looked at several options. We looked at a complete program overhaul. Do we want to say, okay, we're not going to be in the single stream business anymore. We're going to run a single manned cardboard and paper facility, and we're going to make some revenue off of this. Do we want to make that recommendation? Our cost would go from roughly 20,000 to zero annually if we were to go to a paper and cardboard. No additional staff, no additional materials. It goes in the same compactor we have. There would be some time it would take to get it cleaned up and do that. So that certainly was something we considered. Something I looked at was a recycling fee. I was unsuccessful in finding any municipality or county that charged a recycling fee. They're, in a roundabout way, they would charge more for trash unless you had recycling. So trash would be 50 cents a bag if you had, or $1 a bag. If you have recycling, it's 50 cents a bag. Well, now you're charging your trash customers for the recycling fee. So you've made everybody angry at that point. So that's certainly was something we looked at and trying to figure out if we want to charge a fee for the recycling. Something that I considered internally, and a lot of municipalities are doing it, is eliminate the program. What does that do? What does that do for the program? Decision factors really is we have to decide is, do we want to provide this service and at what cost? And this currently it is operated as part of our enterprise fund, and that enterprise fund is today not going in the right direction. And I believe that it is my job as your public works director to bring this information to you and decide whether we want to fund it adequately or make some alterations. And that is all I have. I'll attempt to answer any questions.
Well, I mean,
Recommendation is to continue to operate one location at the transfer station.
Yeah, today my recommendation is yes, just that. I think this should be revisited because this industry is changing rapidly, and revisit this certainly on an annual basis, and perhaps twice a year. That's kind of the way we've been doing it the last 18 months, is twice a year. So
this came up earlier. I think, we talked about it, and I think I made the recommendation that let's try to do it 6 more months or something, and revisit it. And that's one of the reasons I asked Dave and county manager to bring it back. But I mean, we're losing $20,000 a year. In 3 years, we've lost $60,000, and it's contaminated. So we're not really gaining anything by taking the recycling in. And if we do recycling, Dave, we do it with the cardboard and they bring it in a bag, is it contaminated?
So some of the logistics we talked about, and I talked through it with our supervisors, is we would still have to do the same thing we do now.
Yeah,
If it comes in a bag, we're gonna rip it open. Nobody likes that, but you'll see I didn't say that, but we haven't seen a contamination fee since we started opening bags. So we're doing the very best we can do with managing our cost. So yes, to answer your question, yes, we'd have to tear it open and see that it's clean. And I don't know if you caught that, it has to be clean cardboard and clean paper. There are some magazines that you can't put in there, but that's certainly an option that we could look into. And Advanced has asked us that, please go to cardboard and paper, because there is a U.S. market for that. They don't have to export anything. It goes straight to current paper plants that are in the United States, and they can make some money off.
So if we took cardboard down there and they decide some of it was contaminated, are we still going to be breaking even, or we're going to make money, or be back into losing money again?
I didn't explore the cardboard paper option fully. I just, through brief discussions with Advanced, number one, it is very difficult to speak with somebody in advance. They're in the middle of an acquisition at Eagle Point with another major player and all this stuff. So the brief conversations I had was, we'll pay you for clean cardboard and paper. That's what I was told. I don't know what that means. I can tell you it ain't gonna be a lot, but it could offset our cost for the on occasion contamination.
But you
clean
also have a
cardboard and paper-
man cost. I mean, you have an hourly cost of your team dedicating time to separate that stuff out too.
Yeah, so they're there now anyway. They're there now because it is a solid waste facility. It's not just a recycling facility. So they're there now. And this board was gracious enough 2 years ago, we've got 2 full-time employees at the transfer station. We often also have an inmate. So there is always 1 full-time, 2 days a week, there's 2 full-time employees there. So what we're trying to do is those 2 days is use those 2 days to concentrate on recycling. Sometimes it piles up and we have to do that. So that's a static cost, whether it's cardboard or single stream.
Yeah, I'd be okay with exploring the cardboard thing if there's an option there, as long as we don't get into these negative situations that we're dumping half the stuff anyways.
Something to think about too, we also talked about in my recommendations, and I'm just trying to cover all my bases. I know we're rambling a little bit now, is much like our, if we wanted to do I say we, and I know how this happens if you open your mouth, if you want to do a once a month recycling day or something, kind of like we do with the shore sweep and the electronics recycling. If there's a group or an organization that wants to tackle this and say, hey, we've got the trailers so that we don't have to purchase that cost. We're going to be in Home Depot parking lot today. That way it can be manned and we can potentially coordinate that where they can take it straight to the materials recycling facility, dump it out through volunteers, and we still have that service. I know the term volunteer is a big if there. Believe me, I've been in the volunteer organizations.
Well, manned is the big, I mean, that's one of the major problems, because like you said, Station 2, it's not manned.
Correct.
In a weekend or night, trash goes in there. I mean, it's just easier to drop it off there than go to the transfer station.
That's correct.
And I was reading that trailer was overran, and we got calls on it. I got calls on it every week, several times a week.
Mhm.
And, but that's the big thing, is having a trailer manned.
Other questions for David? Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have presentation of cable TV proposals, Information Technology Director Herman Thompson. Herman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon.
That-
Since it's come up a couple of times today, I'll just go ahead and let y'all know that the email maintenance that was started will be completed tonight. So we should not have to resort to smoke signals tomorrow. Okay. It is taking a little longer than expected. And we're looking into exactly why that's happening. It may actually be a good thing that we caught this, because there may be some underlying issue as to why. But since it came up a couple of times tonight, I want to let y'all know why exactly that is. So, and it will be completed. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about cable television. Okay. Give you a little bit of background information. For years, Windstream provided cable television to all of our facilities for free. Okay. A month or so ago, Windstream discontinued that service completely to everyone, home, commercial, everywhere. And since we were getting this service for free, we had no notice that they were going to discontinue this service. Okay, one day the TVs just stopped working. And that's when the phone calls started coming in. Hey, my cable TV is not working. Okay. So when that happened, we reached out to some vendors, Comcast, Dish, and DirecTV, to see what kind of solution they could provide for us and what the installation cost would be and what the recurring monthly cost would be. And in your packet there, you have a breakdown of the DirecTV and the Dish network prices. Comcast was a no bid. Okay. The installation costs, as you'll see on the Dish Network installation, are higher than the DirecTV installation, but the monthly recurring costs are significantly less. Okay, this is the same exact installation and service that other counties who were affected by the Windstream service termination are undergoing right now. So we're not the only ones that are going through it. What I would recommend to the board is that we consider the Dish Network proposal to come out of the general fund as soon as possible so that we can get the service back up and running. This service is provided to all of our fire stations, the jail, the senior center, the government center. Just about all of our offices have some TVs that they have in break rooms. The jail has them in designated areas. So, and with that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Were department heads had input into, they wanted, and let me tell you where I'm going. I just know that the tax commissioner lobby, there's a TV there, but it's always just playing music. So
Right.
you could essentially just get a free Spotify and run that and save $1,300. But did Nicole say she wanted an active TV?
Absolutely. Yeah, what I did was I sent out an email explaining what the situation is to all the department heads and said, let me know how many TVs you have in your area. And I got those numbers back. And then once we contacted the 3 different companies, them from location to location, walking through, showing them where each TV is, and they could look at it from a technical perspective to see how many receivers would be required, as well as how much service is going to be required. One thing that varies on those 2 that you'll see is DirecTV. If a TV is in a public viewing spot, their license requires an additional receiver and additional service for that TV. That's one thing that varies with the Dish proposal, is that they do not have the same licensing requirement.
Is this just, we're just talking about watching television?
Essentially, yes.
Well, some of it,
Well, Lord have mercy.
some
Well,
of
I
it's
know-
weather, I mean,
What about antennas? I get all this stuff. I mean, of course, I'm in the same situation at my parents' house, but what about just antennas? Do we,
That's a
well, what's
possibility.
wrong with that?
That's a possibility. There would be a large installation cost associated with that,
There
because
would?
that's not a service that we previously had.
an internet TV.
Oh, and what is this other thing? Even my grandson mentioned something. It started with an R.
Roku?
Yeah, what
Okay.
about that?
That was one thing that I got out ahead of when I contacted the department heads. If we did streaming, that would put an enormous burden on our network, okay? Because video is the largest data size of any type of data that we send across a network. We would actually have to get an additional internet circuit at each one of our locations to be able to handle the streaming service, if that's what we went to.
So these costs would be absorbed into each department's budgets. Vicki? So they need to include these in their own budgets, and maybe that'll make them decide whether they want them or not.
I wonder what kind of programming they had.
I don't know, but I'm coming up here to watch TV.
I don't know, I just wonder.
I know that, just to give you an example, in the jail, they are required to provide access to news service to them, just to give you an example.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And since this went down, they haven't been able to do that.
And to Sharon's point, you do have digital TV that is broadcast. That would eliminate your monthly service cost, but you would have a one-time cost of installation.
Correct.
And you think that that cost will be much greater than these costs?
It would require a lot of additional wiring, yes. With this, we're able to reuse a lot of the existing Windstream wiring.
Was it not coax cable?
It is.
And you can't run those feeds over the coax cable?
To some degree, yes.
I'd like to get a look and see what that would cost us personally, just as another option to consider.
You remember that guy too that came before us and he was just having a terrible time with, wasn't it? Oh, that was with Whitney. Okay. Yeah, that was, yeah. Oh, Nick, forget it. Yeah.
Other questions for
I just can't believe how expensive this is.
Other questions for Herman? So you're like a cost on the,
Digital antenna option, and I don't know. I mean, will one of these other vendors that does these wirings, would they be able to
We can always reach out to them and find out, yeah.
see what that would run?
Were people getting HBO and Stars and Cinemax?
No, no, they were not. It was basic cable, and it was primarily used like at the fire stations. When have their downtime, they have something to
Okay.
watch.
Yeah.
So that's why Danny is particularly anxious to get this going, because his
Yeah.
people have been down for months. Also, Jeff Johnson expressed his concern because, as he put it, that the jail is a little more calm when they have television service available.
Unless they're fighting over which program they want to watch.
Yeah, that I don't know.
You know,
but
well, they do.
Not everybody wants to watch Lifetime.
I've heard about it. I've not experienced, I may experience it. That's what I've heard about.
So you are recommending Dish
Yes,
because there's, okay, and not Debbie's Little Dishes.
that's correct. Debbie's Little Dishes is a direct TV provider.
And you're recommending Dish, okay.
Yes, yeah, because in the long term, it's much cheaper on a monthly and yearly basis.
$600 monthly cost.
Yes.
You can make up that difference in installation in 1 year. Or less.
Well, I agree with Chris. I'd like to see that up.
Okay,
Okay,
I
we
don't see
can
why we
certainly,
can't try an antenna.
work on it and see.
yep, absolutely.
Thanks, Herman.
Great, thanks.
Next up, we have the presentation of the 2020 Dawson County Surplus List. Fleet Services Director Shannon Harbin. Shannon.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Hopefully I'll have a little better presentation. I'm wanting to make money instead of spend money. You have provided for you a list of 31 surplus items that I'm asking permission to sell on Gov Deals. We'll advertise for all the local citizens and hopefully they can have first shot at purchasing or at least know that these assets are out to buy. Do you guys have any questions?
What are we doing with a pontoon boat?
Pontoon trailer.
That's,
Dive boat or something?
yeah, one time it was five, by the way.
It was the sheriff's office,
Sheriff.
yes. Mhm.
Questions for Shannon?
No. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it.
Give us enough money where we can pay for TV.
That goes into a different fund. All right, County Manager Report, David.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Finance worked with our collections agency for the ambulance billing services, and it agreed to work on the rake straw account that was was past due at the transfer station. The agency was able to get that organization to set up a payment plan of $1,100 per month. The total amount owed was $9,898.76. And we have received 3 monthly payments of $1,100. So it looks good that we will collect that debt less than 24% that we pay to the collection agency. So
much better than having it as a write-off. And you may recall that name. We talked about it several months back. So we have continued to work with them, Finance has, along with the collection agency, and they have worked out an agreement. We are not servicing that company today, and nor will we in the future. So
Now, what was the amount? I forgot what the total amount was that they owed.
it was the 98.
Oh, I thought it was more than that. I thought maybe.
There were a
negotiated.
couple of them that were up there in the $15,000+
Okay.
range. But this one, and I want to say Commissioner Gaines had brought up to see if we go back and continue to work with them on that. And Finance did, and they've been able to, like I said, for the last 3 months, recap $1,100 per month, and they're on a plan, continues to go forward. So we should end up with about $7,523. So that was good that they continue to work that one. The Dawson County Government Citizens Academy, which I know y'all are in support of, and I think last year we only had, 2 people that wanted to sign up for it. And of course, like at most things, it's the time when, they would have to come to that. So with the new system that we have in place now, and kudos to Laura and IT for getting things set up, but we're going to have a Citizens Academy, will now be virtual. So starting this month, videos will be posted to the county's YouTube channel and other social media sites for citizens to watch when it is most convenient to them. So if they're working during the week and on Saturday they want to click on to these postings, they'll be able to do so. And along with that, depending on the topic in the Department of Public Affairs, will post a 1 to 2 videos each month. There will be a citizen interaction link to that as well. So they would be able to ask questions and in writing, and then those answers will be given in writing so that everybody else can look at it, and it'll be monumented at that point. So that's going to begin next month, I believe. Is that correct? This month. Okay. So we'll look to see that program advance. Reminder that the county offices will be closed on Monday, September the 7th for the Labor Day holiday. And then Dawson County's census response numbers have exceeded its 2010 response rate. Dawson County's response rate is between 60 to 69%. If any citizens needs assistance completing the 2020 census, the Census Mobile Questionnaire Assistance Center will be on site at the Dawsonville Farmers Market from 3 to 6 p.m. Wednesday, September the 9th, 8 a.m. to noon Saturday, September the 19th. Dawson County Emergency Services will host this year's Patriots Day service on Friday, September the 11th. You may recall this is a customary annual service that is attended to recognize those that have passed away in the Trade Center bombing. So traditionally this community event, the sheriff does it one year, we do it the next year. So what we're doing now is going to go ahead and do a online COVID-19 social distancing type of virtual ceremony. And let's see here. And that the video post on video on Friday, September the 11th, to honor and remember those firefighters. So that'll be on there as well. The annual shore sweep, which was mentioned a moment ago, will be held at 8 a.m. Saturday, September the 26th at War Hill. That's September the 26th, 8 a.m. That's the shore sweep. And that is, yeah, almost on the 26th. So we also have, and I just want to bring to your attention, this is a proposal that's going to be going to the General Assembly by ACCG. You may recall I had forwarded to you all the updated House bills and Senate bills that were passed. So this is separate from that. This is ones that will be proposed. The ACCG's 2021 proposed initiatives to the General Assembly is the Broadband Deployment Initiative to expand affordable, reliable, and enhance broadband access throughout the state. The state has adopted several laws and policies in recent years to facilitate this development, particularly the 2018 creation of Georgia Broadband Development Initiative. ACCG asked the Georgia General Assembly to appropriate funds to the state grant program in order to help eligible local governments and their private sector partners provide broadband services to unserved and underserved areas. Additionally, ACCG supports authorizing local development authorities to issue revenue bonds to fund broadband infrastructure. If you recall, one of the big issues has always been the cost associated with the infrastructure construction. So we'll be following that. We'll give you updates on that as we move forward. And that concludes my report. Answer any questions.
Questions for the county manager?
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. County attorney report.
Mr. Chairman, I've got no report, but I do want to say that there is reason for executive session after the voting session tonight,
Okay. And that would be for,
pending litigation and settlement of pending claims.
all right. And with that, we'll take a few-minute break and get prepared for the voting session. And we will be back in just a few minutes. Thank you for your attendance, and thank you to those that are with us online.